Hey guys, Jim the Game Guru, and in this video I'm going to go over my top 11 roguelite games, roguelike/roguelite games that I've played on the Nintendo Switch so far. It's not going to be every single roguelike out there, but it's going to be a pretty good bunch. If you guys are new to this channel, please subscribe. I need your support more than ever to keep this channel alive. Please subscribe, please like, and please share. Okay, so number 11, a robot named Fight. So this roguelite takes a lot of inspiration from Super Metroid. It has a very Metrovania style gameplay, Super Metroid at its core. So one of the reasons why it's actually down at the very bottom of my list is because even though the gameplay was okay, it lacks good characters, good enemies. Some of the weapons were kind of okay. Nothing really that absolutely shocked me. The pixel art is not bad. It is, I feel it's a little expensive, so if you end up getting this, I would probably wait for a deep sale. But that's just the way that I feel toward this game. Other people may actually really enjoy it. For me, it just fell a little behind the others on the list, and it comes in at 11. Okay, number 10, Kingdom New Lands. This is one that I picked up not too long ago. It's pretty interesting. It has great pixel art. It has the sound and kind of the theme to it is absolutely fantastic. It's kind of weird though. It's very horizontal. So when you're on the play field, you have your kingdom or your building in the very center, and you have to kind of build it outward, and the goal is to basically keep monsters from taking your crown, and so you have to stay around as long as you can before monsters eventually do that. You build up your kingdom and you defend against the monsters. It's very quiet when it comes to any kind of story or characters, even though there's a lot of people on the board, like little peasants that follow you, and you pay them, and then they have roles and responsibilities. It's very quiet as far as the interaction. It's kind of like a tower defense. It feels like a tower defense mixed with some other kind of side-scrolling genre type of a game. So that is Kingdom New Lands, number 10. Okay, so number 9, Enter the Gungeon. Man, this game, what can I say about this game? This game has amazing pixel art. It has great gameplay, lots of guns. I love the theme of this game, and I love the weapons you get, and so much to this game that is amazing. The only reason why I have it at number 9 is because it's one of those games where I jump in and I played for the longest time, and then I jumped out of it, and I jumped back in after a few months, and then I jump out. And the biggest hurdle I find with the Enter the Gungeon is that it focuses too much on perfection. You have to be perfect at the game. If you make any mistakes in this game, it will cost you during your runs. I also feel like it also depends heavily on the weapons you get during the runs, and you can say that about a lot of roguelites, but in this one especially, if you get screwed and you get some really bad guns, you're not going far. But at the same token, if you get lucky and you get a bunch of OP guns, you're going to have a fantastic run. It focuses too much on perfection, and you have to spend a lot. I mean, it's so hard. This game is so hard. You have to spend a lot of time getting really good at it so you can have the perfect everything with it. I feel like a lot of the shop prices for a lot of the guns, especially in the early levels too, are just so high. They're ridiculously high, and those are kind of the drawbacks that really knock this game all the way down to number 9 on my list. Number 8, Binding of Isaac. So Binding of Isaac, you're Isaac, and you got this crazy mom that just went absolutely insane and wants to kill you. During your runs, your goal is to go all the way through each one of these boards. I think there's 5 separate boards, and then eventually get to your mother and beat her. A version of your mother, I would say, because this game has multiple endings. So when I went through and I first beat it, oh yeah, I beat the game, yeah. But it turns out to be like there's actually multiple endings in this game that you have to go through over and over and over. There are a lot of power-ups you can get, a lot of combination power-ups. Like you go from like your basic Isaac and you kind of transform into like this craziness with all these different things on you. It's absolutely fantastic. I dig the theme. Controls seem a little archaic because you can't do diagonal shooting. It's kind of weird. It's very left, right, up, down. But other than that, I think it's a solid roguelike. It's definitely worth a pickup. The 2-player is kind of weak on it for co-op, but it's a solid roguelike and you won't be disappointed. I think the only reason why it's all the way down to number 8 is just because there are so many other games on this list that are just a little step better, in my opinion. Okay, 7, Crypt of the Necrodancer. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a rhythm-based game. I'm actually going to add Cadence of Hyrule to this spot as well, because Crypt and Cadence are kind of the same game. One's just Zelda-themed and was produced in partnership with Nintendo. So in this game, it's a rhythm-based game where you have to go through a dungeon, and you go through these runs to then eventually beat the and mastermind. I still have yet to get to the end person. I've gone through like I think 4 dungeons in a row. But you move to the beat, you go through and you pick up items. Great pixel art again. I feel like a lot of roguelites use like this pixel art, very top-down driven kind of landscape. But the weapons are great. You get perks that you can beef up your character. It's definitely one of those games that when you unlock additional characters, it suits your style. So maybe some people might want to play somebody that works with rhythm, and then there's actually another character called the Bard where you can open that up, and then if you don't want to play with rhythm, it's just every movement the monsters move after you move. So it kind of it's flexible enough to suit different types of people, and the music in it is fantastic. It's awesome. It's a great pickup if you're looking for a rhythm-based roguelike. Number 6, Descenders. Descenders is unique on this list. The developers on this and their actual description consider it to be a rogue bike, and the reason why this is on this list is because it is every run that you go through, the tracks that you have to go to get to the very end to complete your entire run within an area, that's all procedural generated. And then when you get to the next big area, that's all procedural generated too. So everything is in runs, and it's the landscape that is procedurally generated on what's available to you, which way you go. This game is kind of like you take Tony Hawk, but instead of skateboarding, it's mountain biking. You can do tricks and all sorts of cool things. The controls are really, really solid. I really absolutely enjoy this game. I think it's something completely different in this roguelite genre. The only thing that kind of hurts it are the graphics, I feel, in this game. I feel like this game is very early 2000 looking with its graphics. And I'm not somebody that's about graphics. I'm usually about, okay, it's gameplay, story, or characters. And with this game, it's got great gameplay, but there are no stories. There are no real characters. It's just you on a mountain bike that you can get sponsored by people, and you go through runs. If you lack those 2 things and all you have is gameplay, then you have to kind of offset that and elevate the game a little bit somewhere else. And I feel like this game is one of those games, it's an exception to the rule, that should have its graphics a little more elevated, to bring out that awesome factor when you're doing all these tricks and stuff. But Descenders is an absolutely fantastic game if you're into like mountain biking or into games that you go through and you do tricks and kind of like a Tony Hawk style. And then here you go, it's one in a roguelite fashion. Okay, number 5, Mana Spark. This is probably one of my surprises on my list. I think Mana Spark is absolutely fantastic. It has a little clunkier of a pixel art. It's not as tight as some of the other pixel art games. But in this game, you go through dungeons, just like a lot of other roguelike games. You're going through dungeons. You have to kind of make your way through and get to the end. The thing that I absolutely love about Mana Spark that is completely different than a lot of the other games is that it's not like super fast paced where you go through and you're just shooting these guns everywhere and craziness, and then you're trying to get through, and then if you die, you die on the spot and you're done. Or if you make it, then you barely make it and you're like, it's all action crazy. With Mana Spark, it seems a little bit more tactical. Like, the way you approach the enemies matters, the way you shoot matters, because enemies have shields and they can block you. You can kill enemies fast if you hit their weak spot, but at the same time you do no damage if you hit the shield. So everything is very tactically oriented when you're facing the enemies and moving around, and I absolutely love that. I also like the fact that you can see where all the enemies are on the screen on the mini map. It's just a matter of planning, like, how do I approach them, how do I shoot them. And sometimes you might encounter enemies that you can't approach from the very front, and you have to lay traps down and then move back and lure them into the traps so they hit the traps. I absolutely love the style of gameplay on Mana Spark. It's fantastic. It's a great game. Definitely recommend. Okay, number 4, Unrailed. Now, this is the hardest one to show visually, and actually had people get on board with it, because the game looks like trash visually. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. The game completely looks like trash when you look at it. But when you get into it, it's actually really, really, really good gameplay. I mean, you have a train that you go from a starting point, and you need to get this train as far as you can on every single run. There's crafting in it where you're on there and you're kind of chipping away at trees, you're getting wood, or you're chipping away at ore, you're getting at rock, and you're getting some kind of ore. And then from there, you have to stick the wood and the ore on your trains, make tracks, and then after you make tracks, then you kind of lay down the tracks to guide your train to the right spot. And when you have that mixing of crafting plus extending your train and then getting additional components on your train as you go from one train stop to another, and just trying to guide it through, it makes a very unique experience. It's very cooperative, and I love that. This game is perfect with other players. You jump in, one person's mining the ore, the other person's mining the wood, and you're kind of working together. Times where you're like, the train gets on fire, and you have to put the fire out, so one person has to rush and grab the bucket of water, put it on the train to cool it down. It's very cooperative driven. I think the gameplay is spot on. It is a little lighter as far as the action driven aspect. I don't feel like my heart never feels like it's busting out of its chest, because I'm just trying to guide this train down this path, and then all of a sudden when you get stuck and you're screwed and you're locked in somewhere, your run just ends right there. It's like boom, there's nothing you can do about it. There's also a versus mode in the game, which is really awesome. So you can have people on the top part of the screen and then people on the bottom part, and you work with your teammate to get your train through while the other people are working, try to beat you by getting their train down the furthest. They're basically trying to make the other team crash first. So if you're interested in something that has a versus mode too, then that is just it's a fantastic game. I enjoy playing that with my daughter a lot. Okay, so now the top 3. Okay, number 3, Moonlighter. Moonlighter, if you like Zelda, you enjoy pixel art, and you enjoy opening a shop and selling things, which sounds really odd in a game. Like, why in the hell would I open up a shop and sell stuff that I find in the dungeon? And that's one thing this game does. I love the fact that everything you get inside the dungeons when you go in, you can sell in your own store. So in this game, your protagonist is in the town, and you have this shop, and you end up going into dungeons, and there's 5 dungeons, and as you're going through the dungeons, you end up getting materials from these dungeons, and then you end up improving the town. The town gets more shops, your store actually gets bigger, and the selling of the items in your store is actually fun. I never thought it would be. It's actually a really fun experience. The controls in the game are beautiful. You can go through the dungeons and just the hack and slash, the Zelda style. I mean, I'm talking about old Zelda style, not Breath of the Wild, obviously, but like old Zelda style. You have different weapons you can use. You have like your swords and your spears and bow and arrow, and you have this great sword that's really huge. You have the sword and shield, and the controls are, it's just I mean, it is spot on. The only thing that really holds Moonlighter back is the fact that, well, there's two things. One, I think the game's a little buggy. It's always been buggy. Every time I fire it up on the Switch, there's always a point like 2 or 3 hours in or somewhere where the game eventually crashes. And I've seen, and after multiple updates of the game, I have yet to see some of those issues go away. The second thing is, I hate when you're being pushed in the dungeon, and like there's this monster, this big green goo monster that comes out, and he ends up chasing after you if you don't hurry up and get to the end of the dungeon. And each dungeon has 3 floors before you encounter the boss. And so if you don't get to the end of that floor, then this green goopy monster guy comes out and chases after you and kills you. And he's like an insta-death. And that drives me nuts, because sometimes there's times where I want to go back in previous rooms and just collect some stuff. It doesn't allow you to do that. But the one benefit about this game that I really like over the other roguelike games is that I feel like there's a constant progression in the game. I feel like I'm getting new gear, better gear, and getting a little bit more powerful, so I don't have to spend 500 hours being a god in this game in order to beat it. So Moonlighter, fantastic at number 3. Number 2, here's another shocker. I never thought this would be any good, is Nowhere Prophet. Nowhere Prophet is absolutely amazing. It is a card game where you're in this post-apocalyptic world, and you have a convoy, and your convoy is nothing but followers that follow you through this adventure. You're going from the very beginning through these lands all the way until you get to a crypt. And when you get to the crypt, you have to fight the crypt core. The graphics, I think the music is amazing in the game. The graphics fit it perfectly. The gameplay is really, really solid. It uses a lot of gameplay in most card games that you'll see like in Magic the Gathering, or even like Keyforge or whatever. But it just names them a different name. Obviously not to copy off of the terminology of those games. The game is I feel like it's very well balanced until you get to the end. When you get to the Crypt core, because I feel like the Crypt core was very overpowered when I first played it. Like, I went from manageable fights to the very end where all of a sudden you have this Crypt core with these mythic cards, and they're just throwing these mythic cards out and just absolutely destroyed me. And you have to fight the Crypt core twice in a row, which makes it difficult. So there's no healing in between, no nothing. But the game is great. Like, you end up unlocking additional convoys and additional leader types as you go through the campaign. And there's also a custom game mode, which I haven't unlocked yet. But that game, it's supposed to be play how you want it. And I'm not sure what that means, but I will find out once I get to that. I'm hoping that it allows me to customize my own deck and go through the campaign. That would be really, really awesome if you can do that. But number 2, Nowhere Prophet, awesome game. It is a surprise from me. If you haven't checked it out, then check it out. If you like card-based games, you're going to love this roguelite. Number 1, dun 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 dun. Let's say it together, everyone. Yes, Dead Cells, number 1. I mean, I cannot express how much I love Dead Cells. Dead Cells is an amazing game. The pixel art is perfect in the game. The controls, spot on. I love the enemies in the game, the bosses in the game. And I feel like with Dead Cells, I feel like it's perfectly balanced. Like when I first started the game and I spent the first 3 hours or whatever, I was able to beat a boss and kind of beat the game effectively. I mean, well, for that boss to beat the game. Whenever you have like this perfect balance and being able to beat a run, and you don't have to spend 500 hours doing it, but yet there's more to the game that I still haven't unlocked, more weapons that I haven't unlocked, other additional bosses that I haven't beaten yet, and then try to see if I can get to those endings. It just makes a game where it makes a type of game that I just want to play over and over. It doesn't rely on perfection. I mean, I've had runs where I thought I was doomed because I was making too many mistakes, but then I corrected some of my mistakes as I went through the run, and I was able to go through and finally beat that run, and I never thought that would happen. Like, that's something that would never happen to Enter the Gungeon, ever. Like, if you make a mistake in Enter Gungeon, you're toast. But with Dead Cells, if you make some mistakes, you can kind of you can adjust, and then all of a sudden and play better in the later parts and redeem yourself. And I also love how there's always things to unlock and to make your character stronger, so you can get more health vials to use those. So you start off with like 0, and then eventually you get 1, then you get 2, then you get 3. I think there's a 4th one you can get too. So there's always something much more powerful that will aid you to help you along as you go through. And the fact that the developer is highly supporting the game, they're constantly putting in new DLCs. And I'm a fan for DLCs when the game is a full game. When somebody releases a full game and they give you a full game for the price, which I think the price of this game is actually is just spot on. I don't think it's too expensive or too cheap. And then on top of that, after they give you the full game, they release DLCs for like $5, which is pretty cheap, just to continue support of the game development and to add on to what is already a full game. I'm fully on board with that, and they do that. And then lately they also released a new update that fixed the performance improvements on the game. So one of the issues on the Switch was that it had some performance issues. At certain points, there would be like some frame drops, and they went through and they kind of worked all that out. I don't know if they had to refactor all their code in the game or what, but they ended up addressing that issue. So this developer is fully supportive of this game. I absolutely love the game. The game is just amazing. It's a Metroidvania style game, and I already love Metroidvanias as it is. But Dead Cells is, it is a great pickup. If you've never played Dead Cells, get it. One of the best roguelites. Even if you don't like roguelites, but you like Metroidvanias, you're probably gonna like Dead Cells, because it's one of those exceptions to the rules where it just, even though it's a roguelite, it doesn't feel that bad. It's a pleasure to play every single time. But anyway, guys, that is my top 11 games of roguelike games that I've played on the Switch so far. I know there's a couple games that I haven't played yet, like Slay the Spire, Children of Morta, Hades, but those are kind of on my list, and I'm gonna be very curious to see how this list changes when I put out the follow-up video to this later on in 2021, after I end up playing those other 3 games plus whatever other roguelites might come out. But that's it, guys. If you like this video, please like, please subscribe. Your subscriptions matter. They really help young YouTubers like me trying to stay afloat and not perish in this big sea of YouTube. But I will see you in the next video. I'm out of here. Thanks.